Good morning, everyone. Good afternoon, good evening, whatever daytime you're having at the moment. How's everyone doing today? How's your week been so far? I hope you're all doing great and ready to level up your English today. We are learning relative clauses, right? Relative clauses. If you are new here, if you are a first-time listener, welcome. Welcome to Takeaway English class. Here's your teacher, Mary. I hope you're all doing great and ready to level up your English today. You are ready to master relative clauses. Okay. If you attended my previous classes on the grammar behind phrasal verbs, you already know that I like to go deeper when it comes to grammar, when it comes to the complicated grammar terms. I don't just make my students memorize complicated grammar terms. I like to use visual ideas and explain things step by step, so you can understand the logic behind grammar. That's why I've written these books that explain everything about phrasal verbs and about relative clauses in a simple way. They start from the basics, like what a noun is, what a verb is, what a pronoun is. Basically starting from the part of speech. These books take you step by step from beginner to intermediate level, like from A2 level of English to B1 and even B2 level of English. They also include lots of exercises with answers, so you can practice and check your progress and much more. And don't worry. These aren't books, those are books full of dry grammar. They are written in a fun, easy to follow way with plenty of examples, exercises, and explanations that actually make sense. I designed them for students who want to speak, not just memorize. For students who always ask how and why, like me. So, if you are that kind of learner, you'll discover the logic behind relative clauses, behind phrasal verbs, step by step, and then move on to what really matters, practice. During my previous lab lessons, I've explained all the basics when it comes to the relative clauses. We learned all the relative words, right? Relative words. We've learned relative words, that, whose, who, whom, which, right? We learned the difference between defining and non-defining relative clauses, right? So basically, we already learned the basics. I've explained everything about how we start learning relative clauses. Usually an A2 level English student should know relative clauses and should at least know when and how to use who, whom, which, and that. You should know the difference between defining and non-defining relative clauses. I explained everything during the previous lessons. So if you are new here, if you are a first-time listener, you can go to my YouTube channel and start from the beginning, from the basics, okay? You can find my YouTube channel in my TikTok profile, okay? So you can start from the basics. You can find the videos, basics for beginners. There are 3 parts, okay? Because now we are learning the zero relative clause. The zero relative clause. Because after mastering basics, we can move forward and start from B1 level, where you should know how to use relative words such as where, when, why, and how to use the zero relative, okay? Julia, what is the name of the book? Is it Julia? Okay. You can find the book in my profile. Good morning. You can find the book in my profile. If you cannot find it, just send me a message on TikTok and I'll provide you with additional information, okay, about the book. And again, if you are new here, if you are a first-time listener, you can go to my YouTube channel where you can start learning relative clauses from the basics. Hello, Mendel. You're very welcome, Justin. Mendel, you're on time. Okay? You can just click the follow button. Hello from China. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever daytime you're having at the moment. Okay, so the zero relative pronoun. So again, what is the zero relative? It means that sometimes we can skip these words, who, which, that, where, when, and why. Oh, no worries. I'm doing great, thank you. Hi teacher, will you upload the last live lesson on YouTube? Well, about the last live lesson, guys, well, to be honest, I wasn't fully happy with the previous live lesson. That's why I'm going to explain everything again, much more clearly. And today's live lesson will be definitely uploaded on my YouTube channel, okay? Okay, so again, the relative clause, right? The zero relative clause. The zero relative clause. Ghost, right? So again, what is a zero relative? It means that sometimes we can skip these words in a sentence to sound even more natural, like native speakers. Because as I said, when speaking, we are often lazy and try to skip some words. It doesn't mean these words disappear completely. They still ghosting the sentence like a ghost, right? Like a ghost. Of course, first of all, we should master relative clauses, these relative words, and learn when to use them, how to use them, and follow certain rules, right? And then we can move to the next level to sound more fluent and master the zero relative. So, following the rules, we can skip or remove the relative words if we have a pronoun or a name right after them, right? We already talked about the pronouns during our previous live lessons, right? So the basic rules are, if we have, where is it? If we have a pronoun or a name right after the relative word that, who, which, we can skip these words and say, the phone he bought is expensive. The man you met yesterday is my colleague. Or the dog John adopted is very friendly. We already know that, right? So, the basic rules. When there is a pronoun, he, she, it, they, etc. Pronoun. So every time we see these words, we know that we can skip relative words that, who, which, and instead of saying the phone that he bought is expensive, we can say the phone he bought is expensive, right? Or if we have names, right? If we have names, such as Muhammad, Katie, Anne, etc., we can skip these words and say the phone the dog John adopted is very friendly. Here we have a name, right? John. The dog John adopted is very friendly. We can say the dog John adopted is very friendly. So the secret is to look at the very next word after the relative word. Okay? If we have pronouns, we can skip them. If we have names, we can skip them. Okay? Easy. However, if we see the verbs right after relative words, we cannot skip these words and leave the sentence as it is, right? We cannot say, I met a girl speaks 5 languages, incorrect. Or the man lives in that house is famous actor, incorrect, okay? Or I have a cat, loves eating fish, incorrect. Why? Because the secret is, again, to look at the very next word after the relative word. If we see a verb, we cannot skip these words, relative words such as who, which, and leave the sentence as it is. Okay? Okay, the zero relative again. The zero relative when there is a verb. Okay, everything's clear with the zero relative when it comes to the pronouns, right? When we have pronouns, we have only one rule. That is, if we have a pronoun after a relative word, we can remove these relative words and leave the pronoun. So again, instead of saying the phone that he bought is expensive, we can say the phone he bought is expensive. Or the man who you met yesterday is my colleague. You can say the man you met yesterday is my colleague. Okay? Everything's clear when it comes to the pronouns or names, right? And now, what if there is a verb after relative word, but we still want to be lazy and skip the relative word? And good news, even if there is a verb after the relative word, we can sometimes still skip it, remove it. However, the structure changes. Okay? While we cannot skip this word and leave the sentence as it is, but if we change the structure, of the sentence, we can still remove this word and add ing form. Okay? First of all, what is a verb? A verb. It's a word that describes what someone or something is doing. For example, eat, sleep, study, build. These are all verbs. They describe action, what someone or something is doing. Right? Almost all the sentences have a verb. These are action verbs. We have also state verbs such as is, are, okay, or was. These are state verbs. When we see these verbs, we cannot use the relative clause, the zero relative clause, when they show the state of someone or something, right? We can only use the zero relative when we see verbs that describe physical action, okay? Such as eat, sleep, study, build, okay? Okay, so let's go deeper and see now when and how we can skip relative words even when there is a verb after them, okay? For example, let's take example from the book and say, I met a girl who speaks 5 languages. Okay? All you need to do to remove this word is to look at the very next word after the relative word, right? If it's a verb, an action verb, all you need to do is add ing to the verb, and instead of speaks, say speaking. Excellent, Mindel. Very well done. I met a girl speaking 5 languages. Correct, right? So again, all we need to do is look at the very next word. If it's a verb, you should add ing to the verb, and instead of speaks, say speaking. Okay? We can now remove who. We can now remove speaks and say, I met a girl speaking 5 languages. So again, I met a girl speaking 5 languages. Okay? So, one more time when it comes to the 0 relative. If we have a pronoun after relative words, pronoun he, she, it, you, they, them, we can remove this word and say the phone he bought is expensive, or the man you met yesterday is my colleague, or the dog John adopted is very friendly. Or if we have a verb after a relative word, we can add ing and say, I met a girl speaking 5 languages. I met a girl speaking 5 languages. Okay? So basically, people who were attending my previous live lessons, they all know these rules, the basic rules when it comes to the 0 relative, right? Today, I just wanted to speak about when we can add ing, when we can use the 0 relative, and when we cannot use the 0 relative, okay? There are some rules that we should follow, okay? Again, the 0 relative, the 0 relative, the ghost, the ghost. So think of it like a ghost, right? Because it doesn't mean these words disappear completely. We still mean them, okay? They are ghosting the sentence. We don't say it, but we mean it. They are ghosting the sentence. Okay. When we can when we can use the zero relative ing when it comes to the verbs, okay? When it comes to the verbs. Verb plus ing. Okay? So, rule number 1. We can use verb ing with the zero relative with actions happening right now. Actions happening right now. Actions happening right now. For example, now I want you to, I provide a normal sentence with the zero relative word, and I want you to turn it into the zero relative, okay? The man who is waiting outside is my boss. Now, can someone turn this sentence into the zero relative? Anyone? The man who's waiting outside is my boss. Excellent, Rose. The man, the man waiting outside is my boss. Very well done. Excellent, Xiao Xiao. Very well done. Okay, so rule number 1. We can use the zero relative, meaning verb plus ing, with actions happening right now. Okay? We can just skip these 2 words and say, the man waiting outside there's no difference between these 2 sentences. So, the man who is waiting outside is my boss means the same. The man waiting outside is my boss. Okay? They mean the same thing. We are just learning the zero relative because when we speak, we are often lazy, and sometimes we often skip some words to sound more natural. However, it's up to you. You can say the man who is waiting outside is my boss, perfectly correct, or the man waiting outside is my boss. Okay? again, you're very welcome. So again, guys, rule number 1, we can use the zero relative verb plus ing, with actions happening right now. Okay? Rule number 2. Habits or routines. For example, people who smokes should stay outside. Can someone turn this sentence into the zero relative? People who smoke should stay outside. People who smoke should stay outside. People who smoke should stay outside. Excellent. Is it Shabani? Very well done. People smoking should stay outside. People smoking should stay outside. Excellent. However, guys, we all know that when it comes to the defining relative clause, because usually we use the zero relative with the defining relative clause. We talked about it like a passport, right? So defining relative clause, essential information, non-defining relative clause, additional information, right? The zero relative clause is used usually with a defining relative clause when we provide essential information. And with the defining relative clause, we don't use commas, okay? We don't need commas here, no, or here, no, okay? No commas with a defining relative clause, okay? Because we all know we don't just use commas randomly, okay? They change the story. I want you to remember, guys, that, because again, just a quick one, okay? My boyfriend, if I add comma, if I don't add comma here, my boyfriend who lives in Spain, this sentence means, this sentence means I have only one boyfriend, and by the way, he lives in Spain. Okay? Whereas if I remove commas here, this means I have more than one boyfriend. Maybe I have 3 of them, 5 of them, and one of them lives in Spain. Okay? So be careful, guys, with the commas. Sometimes we need them. Sometimes we don't need commas. Okay? Now we are learning all about defining relative clauses. Okay? Defining. When we provide essential information, not additional. So, okay, you need, comma, my boyfriend, comma, who lives in Italy, comma, cheated on me, okay? Here, my boyfriend without comma, it means you have more than one boyfriend. Maybe you have 5 boyfriends, and the one who lives in Italy cheated on you. The one who lives in France didn't cheat on you, but the one in Italy cheated on you, okay? So we should add a comma after my boyfriend, so we can say that you have only one boyfriend, not 5 or 6. Why? Because who lives in Spain identifies which one in the defining relative clause. Whereas if we add comma, we're just saying that my boyfriend, by the way, he lives in Spain, cheated on me. If we remove this comma, it means you want to make the listener understand which of the boyfriends cheated on you, okay? If we remove comma, you use this sentence to identify which one. If you add comma, you are not identifying him, you just adding extra information, by the way, okay? Okay, let's get back to the zero relative, okay? So, rule number 1, actions happening right now, we can use the zero relative verb plus ing. Number 2, habits, routines. People who smoke should stay outside, or people smoking should stay outside. So instead of saying people who smoke, we can say people who smoke or people smoking. People smoking. Both of them are correct. People who smoke or people smoking. Correct? Correct. Okay? It's up to you. Number 3. Number 3. General facts or functions. General facts or functions. For example, the road that connects the two cities is closed. Okay, again. Can someone turn this sentence into the zero relative clause? Anyone? Very well done, Rose. Excellent. Excellent. User, the road connecting the two cities is closed. Xiao, the road connecting the two cities is closed. Very well done. Great. So, instead of connect, we can use connecting and just remove that and connect and say the road connecting the two cities is closed, right? Correct. Okay. These are general rules when we can use the zero relative using a verb plus ing. We will come back to these rules and do some sentences and practice them. Now let's talk about when we cannot use the zero relative verb plus ing. Okay? When we cannot. Okay? Rule number 1. When we cannot use the zero relative, that is verb plus ing, when the pronoun is the object. If there is another subject after the relative word. For example, the book that I bought is great. Now, if you were attending my previous live lessons, I remember people who were attending my live lessons, previous live lessons. Here, we cannot, of course, add ing. We cannot say the book boughting is great, or the book I buying is great, okay? We cannot add ing here and say the book I buying is great. It's incorrect, okay? Why? Because we have object here, the book, receiver of the action, right? Here I is the subject and we have an object. However, people who were attending my previous classes, they know that we can still use here the zero relative. Well, of course, we cannot use verb plus ing, but there is another way to use the zero relative in this sentence. Can now someone turn this sentence into the zero relative? Of course, without verb plus ing. Anyone? Because we know the rule that might work in this sentence. Very well done. Excellent. The book I bought is great. The book I bought is great. Very well done. Spot on. Okay, so even if we cannot use verb ing, we know the rule that can help us to use the zero relative even if we cannot use verb ing. In this case, works the pronoun rule, right? That is, if we have a pronoun after the relative word, we can remove this word and say, the book I bought is great. Okay? So we always have options, right? When we learn some rules, some basic rules, we always have options. If we see that we have a pronoun after the relative word, we already know that there is a rule that helps us to use the zero relative. All we need to do is just remove these words and say, the book I bought is great. Okay? But it doesn't work with verb ing. That's why it's rule number 1 when we cannot use verb ing. Okay? Thanks, guys, for the follows, for the likes, for the shares. That means a lot to me. Thank you very, very much. Okay. Yeah. Rule number 2. Stative verbs. We cannot use the verb ing with the stative verbs. What are stative verbs? These verbs actually describe a condition, not physical action, right? For example, thinking, feeling, owning, what else? Well, yeah. Verbs that describe a state of mind or a permanent condition. We don't use the ing form. For example, love, believe, understand, own, need, want. We don't use ing with these verbs, okay? Even with normal sentences, we don't say I'm needing a book, right? Or I'm loving, or I'm owning, or I'm belonging. We don't add ing to these verbs, even in normal sentences, right? The same goes with the zero relative. When we use stative verbs like thinking, feeling, owning, like understand, love, believe, own, need, want, we don't add ing. Okay? Because they sound very broken. For example, the student who knows the answer can I say the student knowing the answer? It sounds a bit broken. So with the verb know, it's always better to leave the sentence as it is and say the student who knows the answer, okay? Instead of the student knowing the answer, okay? Or the car that belongs to me. We won't say the car belonging to me. The student who knows the answer. We are talking about one student, right? The student who knows the answer. So we add S, right? If here were the students, then we don't need S. The students who know. Okay? The students who know the answer. The students knowing the answer. No. Or the car belonging to me. Okay? So again, with thinking, feeling, owning, yeah, Mindel, exactly. It's always better, even if you are not sure, okay? If you are not sure whether to use ing or not, okay, especially with thinking, feeling, owning, when you have verbs such as understand, love, know, believe, need, want, especially with these words, it's always better to leave the sentence as it is. The students who know the answer, or the car that belongs to me, okay? Okay, so let's move on. Rule number three, when we cannot use the ing, okay? When we cannot use the ing form. Some specific phrases. For example, the first, the second, the last,